Oh, you bet. I'm excited.
Yeah. Everything's cool too.
You sure should. Good.
Yes.
Well, we used to go all the time.
So this is gonna be the hardest part, seeing myself on it. I won't look very.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry, and I'm one of the owners of Swamp Fox Bookstore. We opened, I know recognize a few faces. We opened in July of 2020, so we're almost at 5 years. In July 2020 down at West End Diner. We moved to this location the end of January of 2024. And we've been enjoying the bigger space because we can host events like this. There's more room for the kids to run around. That's also fun too. So I'm excited that everybody is here tonight. So I'm just going to introduce Tracy quick. Your bio right here on my phone.
Yeah.
So Tracy Youngblom is an award-winning poet and author, and she will be sharing her memoir Because We Must tonight. So welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you. So, usually I start out by telling the basic outlines of the story, but you all know that. Like, basic outlines of the story. I'll do the very condensed version, but I think what I will do is talk maybe a little bit about how the book got started, like how it came to be, and then I'll read some sections to you. But just as a reminder, everything about the day was normal. Elias was driving back from Fargo. I didn't realize he was late because he was 23 and he didn't have to tell me what time he was coming home. And as it turned out, he was late because a drunk driver had been going the wrong way down the interstate. The wrong way down the interstate and ran into him head on. And so he almost died. Actually, if you talk to him, and maybe some of you have talked to him, he will say, I did die. They revived me in the emergency room, which is also true. So he was, in the ICU for a while, and then about 3 weeks into his recovery, when everything was going really well, like amazingly well. One day, they were doing that test where they hold the light. And he's like, what light? There's not a light. So then we found out that, it was hard to explain after the fact. Like, they aren't really sure why he lost his eyesight. There were some possibilities, but he was blind because the blood flow to his optic nerves had gotten cut off. So that meant irreversible blindness. So then everything changed again, sort of like every frame of mind, because we were feeling pretty hopeful. Not that we weren't hopeful, it was just a different kind of hope. So, in the midst of all that, also, the writing that I was doing was the Caring Bridge posts, and maybe some of you were reading those during that time. Like, that was a really good thing for me to write every day. Like, here's what's happening, here's what's happening. Gave me a way to sort of process it and remind people, hey, it's fine. Like, he lived, it's fine. So that was really good. But then it was literally his idea because as soon as he moved down to the Twin Cities, he was in Regency Long-Term Care Hospital, and he still had a trach tube. So he had this thing sticking out his throat, and his jaw was still wired shut. But he had figured out how to talk, through his teeth. So that was anything talking. And he just said to me one day, are you going to write a book about me? I was like, oh, that's not what I'm thinking about right now, but we'll see. And in fact, I didn't, besides the Caring Bridge posts, I wrote nothing for 6 months. I didn't really know how to write about it. I think I did start that fall writing some things down, but more just for me, I got to have some outlet here for that. And then this is, to me, an interesting twist in the story. And this is not in the book. That's what I'm telling you now. On January 1st of 2016, so that was like 9 months after the accident, I woke up, went and logged onto the computer, and this weird thing happened to the screen, and all my files got encrypted because we got a ransomware virus on our home computer. And it was my fault. I didn't have everything backed up. So then I lost everything that I'd written so far. And once I lost it, then I was like, what? Even if I wasn't planning to do anything with it, I can't lose that. So then I started trying to recreate what I had written. And that is what I think got me thinking, well, maybe I could write a book about this because I lost it all. I don't know. It was like 100 pages. I mean, I lost a lot. It was, whatever, hindsight. It was my fault. I didn't have it backed up. So that's when it kind of started being put together. It still took a long time to finish the book, but eventually I did. And I do know that one of the things that helped Elias get through it, and so consequently me, was his sense of humor. Because I had a conversation with him just recently. And there's one part of the book that's written like in a play form, where it's a lot of things that he said and did when he was recovering in the hospital. And he called to say, this thing that you said that I said, did I really say that? I said, yeah, you really said that. He said, I'm so funny. I'm going to go tell Katie how funny I am. Okay, so that is his mentality about the whole thing. So the book, it came together, like I said, really slowly over time and into its current form. And so I'm going to share a couple different parts so you can kind of maybe see how it's put together. So the early chapters are very much, so here's what happened. I'm just telling the story. Here's what happened, as much as I could remember and put together. And then after, we find out about the blindness. What I was writing about was different. So the style is really different. It becomes really different. So I'll read something from later in the book too, so you can kind of see a little bit. Although I think that there's lots of different kinds of writing. Like I said, one section's a play. I'm not going to read any of it. That's for you to read on your own. It's kind of hard to. Although I have a sneaking suspicion that sometime Elias will want to do that, a dramatic reading of that in public, because that's kind of what he likes to do. Okay. So there is an introduction that I'm not going to read. And the first chapter I will read. It's called The News Arrives on Foot. No matter how many times I recall the night of the accident, the surprise and shock of finding out, the numbness settling like fog, I relive it in the present tense. In my memory, it is always happening again. At 6:00 on a Monday evening, March 16th, I hear a knock on my front door. I am not expecting any visitors. How unusual, I think. What an annoyance, I think. I have been working at the computer, hurrying to finish preparations for the community ed poetry class I will start teaching on the following night, Tuesday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. It will be the first time I've offered this class, and it has 12 students, a strong enrollment for poetry. My rushing is a prelude to more of the same. After I finish my final preparations, I must dash upstairs to change clothes for my 7:15 volleyball match. I realize I am cutting it close. The knock persists. I linger at the keyboard, torn. The person may be someone running for office or trying to sell me siding, someone who will go away if ignored. But when the noise continues, I leave my computer grudgingly, stalk across the kitchen, and open my front door to a uniformed police officer standing on my front porch, his hands folded against his belt. Can I come in? Sure. My answer is almost a question. Has a neighbor complained about me? Is there some city ordinance I've accidentally broken? Several years ago, a warning flyer had been left under the windshield wiper of Tim's car to announce that in our neighborhood, parking directly across from another driveway was prohibited. Are you the owner of a 2002 Honda Civic? The officer demands, but gently. I can't quite read his face. Is he trying to look official, or is he concerned? Yes, I exhale. What does that have to do with anything? Do you know who might have been driving that car? I step back, haltingly, in dawning realization. My son. I scratch out, suddenly aware I should have been expecting Elias from Fargo. He had said vaguely that he'd head home this afternoon, but it was like him not to text or call, even if he were going to be late. He felt no obligation to keep me informed of his schedule, and I didn't expect it of him. That's why I hadn't been worried until now. The officer and I stare at each other. There's been an accident, he says, finally, lifting both hands, then letting them fall. A gesture that says, I know it's not enough, but that's all I know. I don't respond. How am I supposed to respond? The news is delivered so passively. The officer thrusts a tiny slip of spiral notebook paper toward me. It hovers in the air until I grab it, peruse it, see that it is covered with handwriting. That's the number of the state trooper who was on scene. You can call him for more information. I still have that paper, its edges tangled in a messy fringe, like the frayed ends of an old rag rug. I found out much later that this state trooper had been parked only a half mile from the accident scene, so he arrived within minutes to assess the damage and spring into action. I also discovered later that after he had acted quickly, secured an extraction crew, as well as a helicopter transport to airlift my son to the nearest trauma hospital in Fargo, from whence he'd come, interviewed witnesses and the 2 civilians who'd stopped to help, written his accident report, filled out a warrant for blood alcohol concentration for the other driver. He had also worked hard to track me down. He'd Googled me. He'd gotten my name from the insurance card in the car's glove compartment. He'd called NDSU, apparently because Elias had said that he was a student there. He'd called Anoka Ramsey, the college where I teach, information he'd found by Googling me. By that time, nearly 5 o'clock in the afternoon, no one was at the switchboard to answer the phone, verify my identity, and give him contact information. Finally, out of desperation, he had found my home address online, or maybe from the car's insurance policy card. Out of other options, he had contacted a local police officer and sent him to my house. This earnest and nervous young man now standing in front of me. This odd way of finding out became an integral part of the story, the first of several revelations that arrived in an unexpected, unsettling way. Now I grip the paper he's handed to me in shaking fingers, but not shaking so much that I am impolite. Thank you, I say, noticing that my voice sounds strained, wavering, foreign. I set the paper down on the kitchen counter, smooth it flat, try to remain calm and steady. I grab my cell phone and prepare to dial, hesitating because this officer still stands in my entryway. Would you like my contact information too, in case you need anything from me later? While he writes, I rock foot to foot, still standing with my phone in my hand. The phone feels like a prop. Our interaction feels like a scene in a bad movie. The officer hands me another slip of spiral notebook paper, this one scrawled with his name and phone number. This too I keep. I want him to leave so I can make my call, but I don't want to be rude. He finally disappears before or after I dial. The state trooper answers his phone on the second ring, and I blurt out the only question. Is he alive? I assume he knows who I am. I may have introduced myself briefly, though I am not sure. The news I hear from him, I carefully transcribe, as if taking notes in a class. Another paper I hang on to, all 3 folded and wedged into the checkbook inside my purse. As always, I write down what the expert says, not reacting, only recording. Nearly head on, wrong way driver, serious. I am so studious, I don't even wonder why the other driver was going the wrong way down the interstate. Instead, listening intently, I write down exactly what he tells me. Facial fractures, head okay, liver mild, left arm, BP down, transfusion. I squeeze in this information next to another list, one clearly meant for a trip to the grocery store. Turmeric, sesame seeds, ginger. Under that, I scrawl Phyllis and the number of the emergency room or ICU, I'm not sure which. It's the next place I call for information. Drive safely, the nurse or whoever exhorts when I pledge to be there as soon as I can. I make 2 other essential phone calls after that. To Tim and to Elias's dad, Rich. Rich answers the phone right away, and after a quick conversation, yes, I'm going to drive there. I'm leaving in 10 minutes. I leave a detailed voicemail for Tim, who has a late meeting. Then I get down to business, running upstairs to pack quickly so I can start the journey to my son quickly. While stuffing t-shirts and underwear into a backpack, I suddenly and reflexively bend over, my arms crossing my belly. I gasp for breath, almost, but not quite crying, more like heaving. This can't be the time for falling apart, I think. Not the time for my body to betray my steadfast mind. Pull yourself together, Tracy, I warn out loud. Several deep breaths later, I straighten up, finish packing, watch myself assume a role. Calm, decisive mother. I don't know what I will face when I get there, but I know who I must be, the impervious one, the one who can handle anything. How do I know? Because falling apart means my son could die. So that is the story of how I found out. It was a strange, very strange way to find out, but I got there, and as I said, after the first 3 weeks, the story changed again. So most of the book ends up being about, watching Elias learn various ways to navigate the world and do all the things independently that he wanted to do, including moving out of our house before a year after the accident, because he was going to vision loss resources and learning Braille and learning all kinds of things, and they had an apartment for him, so he moved. So I do think now in hindsight that part of the reason that I wrote so much is that I didn't know how to handle that. Like, I thought he should not be doing that. And I would visit him and he'd be like, yeah, I walked to VLR today. You did what? It was a mile, like in Minneapolis. I said, how'd that go? Well, it's terrifying, but I did it. Okay, that's good, I guess. So anyway, most of the book explores, sort of the day-to-day of that. And then I will read to you a little section from that's near the end. And towards the end, the book ends up being a little bit more about me when I have to figure out how to, I don't know, I guess in some ways move on or how to process it. So this is a chapter later in the book called Light. The edges of clouds are on fire, singed by the setting sun. I have my own fire too, in my small steel fire pit, a self-contained bowl, burning the season's first dry brush and twigs, which were torn from our trees during winter's fury. I am sitting on my backyard patio, enjoying the first really fine night of spring, holding my hands out to the fire's heat and looking up as small balloons of ash float toward the sky. The blue of the sky is an illusion, a false ceiling. It looks like the lid of the world, but it is really a door to the infinite, a sign that there is no lid or cover at all. I don't want to consider infinity, endlessness, when I gaze upward for signs of peace. It's a good thing I can see something that looks like a boundary. Even though it is not a boundary, but a portal to the endlessness that is space, I am comforted. Why is the sky blue? The NASA website tells me it's because light energy from the sun travels toward the earth in waves, short and long, in all the colors of the rainbow. But blue light waves are short, so they are more prone to scattering as they encounter the air of the Earth's atmosphere in their travels. That makes sense, doesn't it? That scattering, that chaos, makes the sky look blue, though both sky and blue are substitutes, simple approximations of complex concepts. I, personally, resist scattering. I like to keep my ideas in my own head where they are safe. If I sent them outward, they would take some of me, some atoms of thought, some element of my conviction flaking off my physical body. I need that body to remain intact at the molecular and all other levels. Sight is how we navigate the world we have been given. We value it above the other senses. Because we can see, we think we can see clearly. Microscopic creatures notwithstanding, we believe in our own vision. I saw it with my own eyes, we say. But we can only see a specified distance. Anything beyond our sight is literally out of sight. This fact takes on a poignant truth for babies who believe their parents disappear when they leave the room. Parents only exist when they can be seen. As we grow, we come to understand that sight isn't needed to confirm reality. Photos will do, or firsthand accounts, or imagination. Space, for instance, the planets, whatever is there when I look up, it's real, it's there, even if we can't see it clearly. It's so vast, it's not even measured in fathomable terms. Space.com confirms that the universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old. The distance between Earth and the edge of the observable universe is 46 billion light years. Every time I drive Elias somewhere, the trip should be mundane, but it's not. Conversation elevates our travels. We have only words to light up the world. We count on them to help us see beyond ourselves. Recently, I dropped him off at a haircut appointment. On the way, he accused me of not remembering where the salon was. I accused him of not trusting my judgment. So far, we were in familiar territory. But then our conversation took a sudden turn. We were parking, proof that I did remember where the salon was, when he said, seemingly out of the blue, I wonder what my life would have been like if I had been in the accident, but not lost my sight. We got out of the car. I walked to his side, and as usual, he gripped my right elbow lightly but firmly while wielding his cane in his other hand. We progressed toward the entrance, talking about this question as we walked. He would have graduated sooner from college with less stress, we began. Bought a bigger house, probably. Been a rock star by now, complete with a teaching job and a sports car. It would have been so easy, he said. I nodded in agreement, which he did not see. We know our reality. We know what a blessed existence we both live. Still. It's weird, he said. I don't even know what I look like. I heard his words as I hauled open the salon door, guided him inside. Do I even look the same? You look the same, basically, I confirmed, except your left eye is a little funky, and you have that scar on the left side of your face. Remember? It cuts into your mustache. You know what's even weirder? He continued. I don't know what you look like. I haven't seen you in 3 years. I nearly froze in place, but managed to steady myself and guide him to his hairdresser's cubicle. Then, because someone else was picking him up, I left him in her capable hands and reversed course to my car. On the drive home, I was acutely aware of details. Recently painted lines on the road, a dead raccoon at the road's edge, Arby's sign flashing in my rearview mirror. Once I arrived, I saw the sunset showing off as usual. Pinks and oranges splashed across the sky. But the colors I knew were a false promise. The sky does not really change color. Clouds are not merely reflecting light. Are merely reflecting light, not embodying it. The sky itself is not even tangible. We recite its known size, but we don't have the capacity to visualize how large it is. Sitting quietly at home did not quiet my head. Never had the truth been so stark. I haven't seen you in 3 years. Of course. Here I had been, ferrying him to appointments, hovering in the background, believing that he was imagining walking beside me, the physical me. When I think of myself in the world, I think of how I look, shape, substance, heft. I had assumed that's what he was thinking, imagining as well. This truth he had uttered was a scorching one, even if he'd uttered it innocently. It removed the lid from my conception of us, his trustful following, my confident leading. Somehow, his trust was like vision. He could see me through my actions, the actual me. I have taken on the dimensions of a concept. I exist without being seen, as a voice, the only observable part of me. All of his world is conceptual now. The literal edges have vanished, except what he can feel by touching boundaries, walls, counters, doorways, my elbow. If he had to live outside, nomadic, the world would be his sky, endless, illimitable, unfathomable, but there. All evening, as light faded and the infinite sky dissolved into darkness, I walked around my house, heavy, slow, ponderous. I had no thoughts. They had disappeared into the infinite recesses of my brain. I simply plodded up and down stairs, bearing this new idea, testing its weight. My son lives in total darkness, in an immeasurable world. Beside him, my voice makes me real, makes the world real, supplies assurance that he can move forward without disaster. I imagine all of the light in the world in my throat, refracted and scattering, so words can be formed out of the void. So I will say, I think that Katie has read the whole book to Elias now, but she hadn't before. So I shared that piece with him some years ago. And he said, "It's fine, Mom, but the ending doesn't make any sense." So I said, "Well, it does make sense. It's a metaphor." But anyway. So I am happy to answer questions or read a little more or do whatever you want.
So what is he doing now?
So Elias moved back to Fargo in 2019.
Okay.
It was a while ago. So because he went there for homecoming celebration and he met Katie at a party for mutual friends. and they hit it off. And so that must have been, gosh, it must have been the year before. But then he decided, this is it. This is the real thing. So he moved back to Fargo. And then they got married in 2022. So he works for the NDSU marching band, writing their drum music and teaching the drummers and doing some private lessons for drum students. Katie works for the newspaper, the Fargo Forum. She's one of the lead editors. He has a wood shop in his garage and he builds things.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yep.
Wow.
And I know all the moms in the room are like, are you? This is exactly what I thought too. But I will say this, he said to me, one time they came, I don't know, to our house and he had like a bandage on his thumb or something. I said, you want to tell me anything about that? He's like, it was my fault. Katie knows it was my fault. I was just going to make one cut. And so I didn't put the safety guard on the saw. So I'm never going to do that again. Okay. Everything has a safety guard. All the tools talk to him. I mean, there are some really great, what do you call those? Like accommodations for tools and things, like talking tape measure. I mean, it's.
Oh, that's.
But I still really want to know that much about it. I mean, he's building me a coffee table right now, and I'm really pleased by that. But also, I'm like, oh my Lord, if he injures himself making a coffee table for me, that's going to be the end of it. Not building anything else. So that's what he's doing now, and I mean, they are doing very well. They're doing very well.
Good.
So it's, which is really great. I mean, I'm not trying to minimize that. It's really great.
Do you, thinking about the beginning, do you think it would have been easier, if that's the word, if he had lost his sight right away?
Yes. Well, okay, yes, but I mean, so I was there, like I never left Fargo. Like I stayed in Fargo for 3 weeks. I was really lucky. The dean got people to teach my classes for me. And his dad, Rich, and Kay were there a lot, and some other family. My mom came for a while, my sister came. So there were a lot of people there. And so we were able to remain really hopeful because his progress was really good, like really good. And, you know, they did all of this stuff. They pried open his eyes and his pupils died. Like we saw that and didn't have any idea what was actually going on. So in some ways it might have been easier, but I don't know if we would have been able to feel so hopeful about everything if that had been the case. And I think it would have been harder for him, maybe, because he could see for a little bit. That's what he remembers. He could see a little bit, but his eyes were swollen shut. I mean, he couldn't see for like 2 weeks. So for 1 week, maybe he could see a little bit through the little squinty eyelids when he could open them. I still think it might have been harder for him. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, and you'll see this if you read the book. It bothered him for about 10 minutes. And then he was like, okay, let's get going. Let's do this. And that was before he could even talk. Okay, so eventually when he could talk, he said, I'm not giving anybody the power to tell me how to live my life. I'm going to live the life. And she doesn't have that power over me. So I'm going to figure this out. And I'm going to do it. And he's done it. Like, more than, I mean, I can sit here and tell you that that's how it's been. But I don't understand it. I don't know how he has been able to do that. It's pretty amazing. Really.
What happened with the other driver?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't say very much about that in the book. That was on purpose. But I'll tell you what happened. Well, I mean, she broke her ankle. That's it. Whatever. Like but my understanding is that often happens because she was so drunk. She was just whatever. Also, her car that she was driving was much bigger, so it didn't. the Civic. I mean, it was small. It was really small. Hardly weighed anything, right? So, she went to jail immediately because she got the DUI. And then she got out, and then we had the hearing, and the judge gave her the maximum sentence, which in Minnesota is 6 months.
Hmm.
So she had already served a couple weeks, so then she had 5 months. If he had died, like if she had killed him, it would have been 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And that was her second DUI. Like she had literally just gotten her license back. Like she did the whole thing, whatever you have to do. She got her license back and did it again. I mean, I don't know the first time, like I don't think she injured anybody, but yeah. So that's what happened to her. And I mean, we really don't know. I mean, we saw her in court, and I have no desire to see her. Like, I don't want bad things to happen to her, but
Yeah.
I don't. Like,
Right.
seeing her in court was almost literally made me physically ill. So,
How old a person was she?
45 at the time of the accident. She was 45. So,
She never made an effort to reach out to
I mean, not except in court. I think, like, I can't remember. I don't remember if she apologized in court. My mom is convinced that she did. I don't remember. Perhaps she did. But I mean, to me, I don't think, fine, you apologize. It's too late.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible, but it's too late. But again, after the first time we got to see her in court, and she told a little bit of her story and struggling with addiction and things of that nature. Afterwards, Elias said to everybody, the family who was there, I'm doing a lot better than she is. Her life's a wreck. And then we were like, okay, good. Now we can just move on. Like, we don't, it's true. She clearly didn't have a lot going for her, which is in its own way is kind of sad. So his whole attitude was, maybe this will be something that will help her to change. Like, if this leads to her figuring stuff out and not ever doing it again, that's something that's good that happened out of something that was terrible. I mean, I did not say that. I would not have said that in my wildest dreams. He said that. And so that was good. Yeah, I mean, that, and he's right about that. But we don't, so she never, reached out. There was some, I feel like, maybe you remember. I mean, she also had no money. I mean, she really didn't have anything. But I think she paid, I don't know, like $100 in restitution or something, because a few checks came in the mail for Elias, some over the course of the year, a couple of years, I don't even remember. So, I mean, she made that effort. I think if there's any reaching out, it will be him, and it will be sometime when he just wants to face that, which I don't know if he ever will, but yeah.
Did she have insurance?
She didn't, but it wasn't her car. She borrowed a car from, hey, do you remember? She was that guy's roommate. Like, she was renting a room in a house from this guy, and she took his car, and thankfully his car had insurance.
Wow.
I mean, that really was good. Like, that was a really good thing. Because I don't think she had a car either, or maybe I can't remember the details. Maybe she did have a car, but she didn't have insurance, so she took his car. We don't know why. I mean, nobody knows why. I mean, whatever story she told in court, it's fine. I don't think she really knows why she got in a car that day and decided to go for a joyride. And I don't know, but it seems like it's really hard to go down the exit, like to go backwards on the entrance ramp to the freeway. I don't know. Like, that seems like a maneuver that would be really hard to do. So
What time of day was it?
2:00 in the afternoon.
Oh,
It was cloudy and misty, and so this was on 94, and so there's a whole bunch of semis like everywhere, and so whatever. Elias remembers whatever eyewitnesses said. He literally couldn't even see the car until it was like, because people were moving into the right lane ahead of
Okay.
him. And then
Oh.
suddenly it was like, boom, there's this car.
Oh, wow.
So that was, I mean, but he doesn't, I mean, he doesn't remember anything, which is good. He doesn't remember it. I mean, he may, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he someday will remember parts of it, but.
It's so amazing how he's found strength to move on, you know, and then you kind of wonder where all that has come. So I'm sure it's you and others and within himself, and maybe his faith. Does he have faith?
You know, not traditionally,
Uh-huh.
not like traditional doctrinal, but I think he understands this. He should not have survived.
So obviously it was for a reason.
It was something. Yeah. What was I going to say about that? I was going to say this. Like, part of it is just pure stubbornness.
Yeah.
And this is what I tell people because it's true. I thought that I was the most stubborn person that I knew. And then he was born. Serious? What? I mean, he's just very like, and maybe it was, we clashed for that reason because when he was in high school, because we're a lot alike. But it's just like, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not telling me how I'm going to live my life. I'm going to tell you I'm going to live my life. And this is how I'm going to do it. I'm not giving up. I'm not going to give up this thing I love. I mean, I do remember in the hospital the first time. I mean, he was pretty out of it for the first couple of weeks. And then somebody, I think Jared, his best friend, brought him a little, I don't know, some kind of Sony Walkman with this band music, you know, high school, but the Planet Suite by Gustav Holst. It's very famous. And he put those headphones on and listened to music again, which was like his whole life.
Oh.
And I remember that his face that day. Like he couldn't talk. We didn't know what was happening, but he heard the music and that was a connection to his life. And then he immediately went back. He went back to the music. Like 3 days after we came home from the hospital, he couldn't even walk. I took him to marching band practice and put him in his wheelchair and wheeled him in there. And all these high school kids were like, "Oh, great, Elias is here." It was very surreal in a way. You know, he could hardly stand. And he went back to it. And that actually helped him a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim, I don't know if there's anything you want to add from your perspective because you were there too, living through it.
Well, I think one of the most interesting conversations in your book is the one where you start to wrestle with it, when he talks about the possibility that he might be a better person than he would have been. I don't know if you want to. That's always struck me as the one, and you wrote about it beautifully in the book.
Yeah, a lot of the later chapters I wrote after we would just be having conversation, and then he would say this thing, and I'd be like, I don't know how to deal with that. I better write about it. I don't know what to do about that. I mean, if I can find it, I could just read it quickly. I believe, yes. Maybe I don't.
Your ability to write about things and put your everything that's going on in your head into such beautiful words. I feel really sorry for other people going through tragedies because we all do. We all have,
Yes.
not like this
Yes.
level. I don't mean
Yep.
that, but then without an ability for an outlet, I understand why so many people turn to, like, you don't know what to do. You drink. You don't know what to do. And you've taken that and channeled it into something beautiful. I wish, like, that's amazing. I feel sorry for people that don't have a channel, like myself. Like, I don't know what, now you would, I feel sorry for myself. No, I don't know. I just don't know how to say it, but like people.
I mean, writing did help me. It did. It was because I feel like I feel like I wasn't talking very much about how I was doing. I wasn't supposed to be the person that people were worried. Like, let's talk about him.
Right.
How, like, I know maybe that wasn't the healthiest thing. now, but whatever. I mean, I felt like, no, I'm not talking about me, but I had the writing like that.
Mhm.
Then I could talk about me and write some, or try to deal with what was happening. Yeah.
What was your writing process like? So like obviously things are happening in real time. I would imagine you're not in a great spot.
Right.
And so you're spitting out stuff into
Yeah.
your writing. So what is the difference between when that was happening in real time to where we're at
Yeah.
finished product?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the early versions of these essays were pretty self-indulgent. And it was more about me being like, oh my God. This
Like
is
a
terrible.
journal, like a diary.
Almost more like a journal, just like not super formed and structured. And that's fine. Like, that's fine. But then, I mean, because I can look back and look on the computer when things are dated. There was a certain point where I started, I don't clearly recall this, but I can see it in the writing, where I suddenly thought, oh, I'm writing for somebody else to read it. I was aware, like, it wasn't just about me. So then I think things started to be a little bit more coherent. But the fact is, the first draft of this book, you would not even recognize it if you compared it. Because there were a whole bunch, like huge sections of the Caring Bridge posts I just dropped in there because I didn't know what to do. There were a bunch of poems in it because I eventually wrote some poems. I just stuck those in there. I was like, anything I wrote, I just put in there. Oh. And, it took me a couple years to think, oh, this isn't really working very well. And then, because the early versions weren't like telling the story very much at all. They were more just reflecting on it. So eventually, because I have good writer friends who give me good advice, who said, maybe you could tell us who else was there. Maybe we can know a little bit more about your other kids. Like, what are they like? I was like, genius! Like, I'd never thought of that. So then when I went back and I was rewriting, then I was more like, okay, this has to be a story. Whatever the idea is here, there has to be some narrative part of it. There can be some other parts, but there has to be something that people can follow, if that makes sense. It was long and it was messy, and honestly, I don't totally understand. And I think that's one of the great things about writing. There's always some mystery. I don't know how I got the idea. Like, I don't know. And I feel like I should know and say something really smart about how this book came together. I was lucky. And I had really good friends who read lots and lots of drafts. That's how it came together. Yeah.
Do you think you'll take some of that poetry and create a poetry collection around the experience?
I've thought about that. But, okay, I was inordinately attached to those poems because I literally couldn't write a poem for 6 months. And then when I did, I was like, oh, these are brilliant. But I don't really think they are. So I don't think they're great poems. I just think it was like, oh, I can write a poem about this. I didn't ever feel like poetry was the main way that I wanted to write about this stuff. So there was a couple of them that I still like a little bit and maybe could use in a different situation. But then again, like somebody, a writer friend, when I was in the workshop group said, well, why don't you take just the most important lines from the poems that you like and fit them in somewhere else? And again, I was like, genius. I never thought of that. So that's what I ended up doing. So there are little snippets, of the poems that found their way into the story. Again, like it's not like I'm as dense as they come. I literally didn't think of any of that. So that's why you have people who help you, who read what you have written. Well, I did find this other little passage that Tim mentioned, so it's like a 2-part essay, so I'll just read the second part. It's short. More than 2 years post-accident, Elias is himself, full force, tough, funny, uncompromising. He lives alone, brooks no objection. We don't have daily interactions anymore, more like weekly. I have had to abandon the worries that used to keep me up at night. I've had to ward off vivid fears of fire, of burglars, of knives and guns, of hit and runs, of evil intentioned strangers. of another unexpected call, this time the death of me. I think I have done well and deserve some recognition. My son thinks otherwise, or he doesn't think of me as a stand-up, an example, as someone to protect. Maybe that's why today, as we are driving, talking as we often do about the arc of this strange experience, he again stops my heart with his casual observations. I think I'm a different person since the accident, he begins. I cringe because I think I know where this is going. Sensing my doubt and addressing it, he provides a few general examples. Less arrogant, more grateful. Well, you don't know what would have happened without the accident, I say. Probably you would have turned out the same. No, he responds quickly and with certainty. No, I'm better. I've turned out better. Do you mean that you needed to change and there wasn't any other way? Now it's his turn to hesitate. I've grown up, he says. I'm less self-involved, less. His voice trails off. The question to end all questions hasn't been answered. I don't push it, though I want to stamp out this line of thinking, stop this smoldering mess before it engulfs us both. I am not as shocked as I was 2 years ago, however. This is the earlier part of the essay, when he suggested that the accident was somehow supposed to happen to him. Today, he's just pondering unforeseen benefits. I don't like the implications, though I understand his eagerness to express gratitude for his life, to find some positive in the aftermath. But I am still surprised at the suggestion that this was our fate. I don't accept that verdict with the brightest face possible. He can't see my face, so he doesn't know that I grimace often, that my eyes cloud with mist, that I shake my head sadly, almost unbidden. It's the accompanying emotions that always stymie me. They lurk under my sunny surface, erupt in bouts of cursing, which I'm going to skip that. Recently, I confessed to Elias that I swear too much these days. What do you say? He said. I told him and he laughed. Mom, that's not swearing. If you're going to swear, make it count. I stay quiet in the car listening. I can see he's also grappling with emotions, half surprised at these insights that are just words. But words, all we have to invoke peace, to ward off fury and fear, to pray if we choose.
That's powerful.
So thank you for that request.
How long did it take you to write the book?
It took me 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Does it make you want to write a book? It's worth it. Yeah, it's worth it. Yeah, it did take a long time. Yeah, but the story wasn't over. I kept thinking the story's not over yet. So you keep writing, the story's not over. Like, where do you end it? I don't know. Like, finally, when he moved back to Fargo, I thought that part of the story's over. That was like, oh, this is where it has to end, because now it's just going to be really different, because I'm not taking care of him anymore primarily. So that was good. Thanks for the question. Well, it is almost 7, so unless anybody has more questions.
Well, thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. So I know you're all family, but if you want to buy books, they have books for sale, and you don't have to get assignments, whatever.
I got a book too. Wait for the camera to stop.